This is an open letter to Uncle Sam, uh, and Uncle Sam's managers and Uncle Sam's people, and specifically my pink-skinned friends in Uncle Sam's land. Here's the thing, folks. I want to talk about the word terrorist, because now you're hearing, I think you should be interested in hearing what I have to say, because I'm a brown guy from another side of the planet. May be interesting for you to hear what a brown guy from another side of some shithole, what is his perspective on this fucking word, the word terrorist. And this is the only reason I'm making this, to just tell you about some of our perspective from another side of the world, what we have seen. And I thought maybe it would be interesting for you, my pink-skinned friends, in general. I mean, we're talking about Europe, Australia, Canada, all of North and South America. My pink-skinned friends, here's the thing. France, during its once they decided that the land that they had, the Frenchmen decided that the land that they have had is not enough, and they can, they have the power to easily go and tip over these countries in Africa and control them, either directly, which they did for many years, or indirectly, which they have been doing after World War II. It's been indirect colonialism, in which instead of you telling them what to do, you pick one of the top shitheads to tell the other shitheads what to do. So after the French decided that their land is not enough, for example, I'm saying, they went to parts of Africa and they started eliminating all competition, all resistance, and taking over. And because they had the military power, military might, they were able to do so. And anybody that resisted, of the fucking locals, the black and brown locals, anybody who resisted French colonialism, French going in and taking over the governance, the system. Anybody who put up resistance, including especially the Algerians, put up some kind of resistance, and the French, the only perspective they issued in their media, we're talking about over 100 years ago, the perspective that the French showed on the media was that they're terrorists. These motherfuckers are terrorists. The Algerians who don't understand that we are there to help the French were telling their own people and anybody else who would like to listen that we are there to help them, and they're putting up a fight. What retards. And these are terrorists, these are crazy people. We're there to help them. Why aren't they? Don't understand. They all understood. You were helping yourself. You just set up a pink-skin structure. The French set up a pink-skin structure where the pink skin was at the top, and the population who used to run themselves now are being run by the pink skins. So this idea, it's still, the French are not, they're still continuing it. It's just now, they only allow those leaders that are friendly with them get into power. If those people who are friendly to us don't get into power in your normal election, we call it, bad election. If whoever is able to bring order to this shit, if that person, that group is not, is not friendly towards us, then that's not a democracy. Then they probably are terrorists. It's sort of like this word terrorist has been used, and that's why the English language is running out of these words, like, insurgent and terrorist and guerrilla fighter, and they have to start reusing them. You see what I'm saying? They have to start reusing them. The pink skin encyclopedia has to start, inventing maybe new words, because all of them have been used as in a very, I believe the word is pejorative manner, in a very dismissive manner, have been talked about anybody of the local. I'm talking about the French. Anybody of the locals, if they don't want to, be run from Paris, then these motherfuckers are terrorists. They should want to be run from Paris. And if not, and you have Patrice Lumumba, your election comes up with Patrice Lumumba, and we think that no, maybe Patrice Lumumba is not our cup of tea. We remove him, we find somebody in the fucking army who, is not smarter than thou, and we just need him to, execute our orders. Let us tell you how you should run that shit. And it has been like this. And the funny thing is that Trump comes in and says Trump doesn't know that this is all, all doing. He has an idea, but he doesn't know the details of what he's saying. It's like we have been, fucking with the planet for a long time, and he knew that he didn't know. Yes, it's the plan. I mean, we have, Mobutu Sese Seko comes in, for example. This is one of the like 50, 60, 70 countries that, Uncle Sam, your representative, your managers decided to get involved around the world, destabilizing. Every time there was a whiff of nationalism, maybe socialism, anytime there was a whiff of that, Uncle Sam jumped in and said, no, fuck you. None of that. I'm going to embargo you. I'm going to, do whatever the fuck I need to do to get, stop this shit. We don't need nationalism. You don't need socialism. Fuck your citizens as my managers are fucking my citizens. It's sort of like, because everywhere that model of capitalism that the British have come up with, the extreme form of capitalism, the kind that says, I drive in a gold carriage, I, the queen, and if my children get married, they drive in a gold carriage. That extreme form of capitalism, that is acceptable. That is, the British have made it acceptable. You see what I'm saying? This glorifying the British monarchy that still fucking exists nowadays, glorifying that is glorifying the British. Oh, they're such... No, bullshit. The British are the most heinous creatures on earth, because they have had the most colonies in the world. The British have had the most colonies in the world as a country. As a country of what, 50 million at that time, their population, 50 million, 40 million, 60 million. At that population, right now they're like 100 million, more than 100 million. But at that time, their population of 30, 40 million is the only country decides that, no, we need to go spread. The British have had the most colonies in Africa, the most colonies in Americas. Oh, fuck. I mean, nobody else could do this. Well, nobody else did. Not because nobody else had didn't have the cognitive capacity. No, most of them had some kind of emotional capacity. The British have zero emotional capacity. Nothing. No. We have to go take it over. Us. We are special. You see? You see my nuts? Come and kiss them because we are special. This is how British look at the world. We are special. We are special. And the more we, respect their system of still having a monarch owning half of the British island and some of the Irish island, a monarch owning half of, British island and some of Northern Ireland, and still owning, Australia, Canada, the Commonwealth, maybe not, have convinced everybody that we are so special in this world, we should be invited to every party. And then we choose whether we would come or not. Folks, the British have never had good ideas. The British are the ones with the most colonies in the world. British never have a good idea, ever. For themselves, yeah, it will work out for themselves great. But for everybody else is fucked. Everybody else is colonized. Everybody else is manipulated by the British for the benefit of the British. So here's the thing, the sooner we stop going with this masquerade, the better it is. Because here's the thing, I started with the French because Viet Cong was another name for terrorists. Then suddenly Mujahideen was good, they used it as, they were terrorists. At that time they were terrorizing the structure that the Russians were trying to put together, governmental structure, maybe with some, push, so maybe they could bring some kind of fucking order to the mountaintops of Afghanistan, and the British jumped in and said, no, freedom, give them guns, give them blowjobs, do whatever that you have to do, terrorize the Russians out of Afghanistan. Okay, so that wasn't terrorism, that was Mujahideen. But now this Mujahideen and that Mujahideen, now this Mujahideen is different Mujahideen, this is a bad kind of Mujahideen. Folks, phrases that we use now and in the future to describe a problem that we try not to recognize. You see, people don't become what you call, the word that we use for people whose problem has not been recognized. These people whose problem have not been recognized get very frustrated. Is that another word we can use for the Viet Cong? Say these were the frustrated people of Vietnamese people who thought they should, they should have control over their land. And we saw after, the Vietnam got back together, it wasn't really Chinese friendly either. It was they wanted to be independent. Even after the pull out, there wasn't There was a celebration in China that, oh, we got Vietnam. No, the Chinese know the Vietnamese are very independent minded. So maybe they had to resort to run the system with communism so everybody can survive. Here's the thing, folks. The problem that Uncle Sam has is not this. It's covered under Islam and this fucking terrorism thing that they've invented again. That's the whale. That's the makeup on the pig. The pig is the fact that these countries are trying to run their system in a socialist manner. In other words, Uncle Sam is still fighting communism and socialism. Still fighting communism and socialism. Still fighting that socialism and communism on the outside. But it has come to the point that Uncle Sam needs actually socialism for the inside. Imagine a guy who has fought all his life to not be dependent on the government for everything, but then at the old age he looks back and he sees that he has 40 million uninsured people who don't have regular access to health care. He has like a couple of million homeless, official homeless, street sleeping homeless, or a car sleeping homeless. It's not that much of a difference. A little, but still homeless. I mean, you put up your tent inside your car. That's also homeless. It's basically Uncle Sam has been fighting socialism abroad all the time. Even in with the Venezuelans, it's fighting socialism. With the Iranians, they say they're fighting radical Islam, but they're fighting socialism over there. Because under Shah, there was a real poverty at the bottom for a long time. The oil money was going to the very select few at the top, and it wasn't percolating through. Nothing was reaching the bottom, so all was absorbed at the top. The shine and the money and the whatever. It was a very top layer in Iran was that rich and happy, but the majority were really, they were still sleeping in little shacks. So that was one of the starters of revolution in Iran. It wasn't much Islamist, that it was socialist, because they saw a few people with lots of money and a lot of people with nothing. So the whole the Islamic part, it wasn't the thing. It was a socialist revolution. Even the fucking communists in Iran were for some reason they thought they needed a headmaster to be able to get the revolution going, and then they thought they dispose of the religious aspect of revolution. But with the help of the British, the religious got disposed of the socialists. But still, the religious, when they came into power, they adapted socialism, because that was the reason for the revolution, because wealth was not percolating through. So the result of all of this is that revolution in Iran, like the revolution in Venezuela, with the leadership of the military, these are socialist revolution that Uncle Sam not so happy with, but the British certainly don't want any kind of socialism. The British will go to their grave fighting socialism, because British are island people, island psychology. Island psychology is the psychology of me. It's very greedy. Island people are very greedy because they're always short on resources. They always have to import resources from mainland, because island grows to a certain population that it can, normally house and clothe. And if they want to go above that population, they become more and more and more dependent on the mainland. And this is why islands, get overpopulated if they have good access to the mainland. If they don't, they get depopulated. And that is why islands are so dependent on the mainland. And the British are saying that no, we are not. We have so many friends around the world, and we are so special that no European Union for us. Motherfucker, all your shit that needs to come from the mainland, and the closest mainland to you is Europe. But your ass is, you don't shit. My British friends, is sort of like your ass is clean, and the European's ass is dirty, and your ass is clean. Fuck you. Here's the thing, Uncle Sam. Please do not follow the British. The British are the reason for a lot of suffering in the world. A lot. Even the World War I and II was because the British were trying to blockade Germany from having proper access to resources. The British were blockading the Germans. And that's why the Germans had to fight back, because Germans have to import everything, because they produce so much that they run out of their own stuff pretty fast. They're producers. The British are pirates. The British are pirates. And I'm sorry to say, my British friends, but you guys are pirates. I mean, Britain, but spreading itself all over the world like this, who does that? I mean, anybody but you would consider, a boatload of Vikings jumping onto land. Just imagine the picture in your mind, a bunch of, Vikings jumping on a little island. Now these are Vikings with guns, and the little islands, they're naked. The fucking Hawaiians walk around naked with a grass skirt. Even the grass skirt apparently was an upgrade. They walked around naked, and their weapons are spears, and they get contact with the pink skins. Imagine the Vikings jumping off the ship. Vikings from whatever. From North America, Vikings from the British side, the French, or mostly British. These people are Vikings, not to be trusted. They're very vicious. The British are very vicious. These guys have colonized the most land mass on earth. They have colonized the most land mass with their own kind on earth. They have colonized more land mass than everybody else by taking over land from somebody else, first eliminating the local competition and then developing it. Developing doesn't justify elimination of the local population, because you wouldn't like it if an alien race, just because they were more developed, you wouldn't like an alien race to come over here and wipe out all humanity from Earth, because, or run us as by order treat us like shit and rule the planet because they got bigger guns. You see what I'm saying? The whole idea of because we have bigger guns, then our idea is better, it's a little silly. You see what I'm saying? And because we got the better ideas, we're going to take over this shit and run it better. I'm sure there are aliens who can run this planet much better than humans. But do you want them to, take over? Because you're justifying your takeover of lesser innovative Homo sapiens who haven't reached the gun manufacturing level of knowledge or craftsmanship. Because they haven't reached that level at this point in time, we're gonna go kick some ass. We have to have the advantage. We have to have the advantage of, what if just shake hand and say, okay, whoever works harder, whoever can build it. But don't point it at each other. It's silly. It's silly. It's a silly act to point to start, try to forcefully by embargo, by sanction, by calling each other terrorists, by forcefully trying to change the other side's mind. Imagine there is no force. Now, what other options there are to change the other guy's mind? Imagine there is no force. I mean, you have done it in Uncle Sam's land. That's basically, you have said, okay, we don't, settle our differences by force, we go to court. Well, if Uncle Sam has understood that this is it, he's executing this in his own land, i.e. saying that we don't want any violence. If you have any disputes, you go to court. And here is a bunch of people I've, chosen as Uncle Sam. I've chosen these people to take care of your, whatever your injustice you think you have been imposed upon. But the point is this: if this chance is given to other nations as well, it's basically saying, okay, let's go to court. No war, no embargo, no sanction. Court. You have an international court, international criminal court. International court. You have an international court. Please use it. No influencing. Have their judges have picked from African countries. All of them have, and with no bias. And then these guys can sit and judge whether you guys are still interfering with the day-to-day operation of cultures that are less developed than you. And if that is so, that should stop. Whether overtly or covertly interfering with the cultures that are, when we say overtly, we mean by war, and when we say covertly, mean by NSA, CIA. These populations, these nodes of humanity on the geography of Earth, they all going through their social evolutions. They shall be left alone. As long as they get along with their neighbors without any interference or applause from abroad, they have got along together for thousands of years. They can get along together for a couple of thousand years if there is no influence from abroad. But we see that the British have pulled out of European Union as a sign that, nope, we don't agree with this poker table. We think this poker table is rigged. We built ourselves 2 aircraft carriers, and we are ready to, kick ass and take names later. That's why. What is the need for that? What is the need for, saying that everybody should follow our lead? Everybody should follow our lead is another lead. Again, terrorist, Viet Cong, guerrilla fighter, asshole. Well, these are all interchangeable. These are all interchangeable, and it's like, if you're the foreign force on somebody else's land, and you can tell you're foreign by the color of your skin. If the color of your skin is not the color of the locals, you're a foreign force. If Australia has that kind of sun that the white people turn, freckly very soon, if they have got to protect 24/7 because apparently it gets a lot of sun. So that's not meant for white people, because the local were black, right? Because only the blacks survived through evolution. The white babies didn't develop cancer and whatever, because of the amount of light that is present. If the locals have a specific shade of skin, then and you don't have that shade of skin, then you're not locals. You must, you're the unwanted guest, because you arrived later while the locals were there. You arrived later when the locals were there. So the point is this: back to Uncle Sam and the fight with socialism. Now, Uncle Sam has been fighting socialism. My dear Uncle Sam, you have been fighting socialism forever, on behalf of the British, who worship money. That's why their queen rides around in a golden carriage. But the point is this: Uncle Sam has been fighting the British fight of, more money, more dominance, more money, more dominance. More dominance because more money comes out of more dominance. That greedy British has convinced Uncle Sam to go on hunt for more land and more resources and more influence, more aggression. And Arabian Peninsula belongs to the British. All those fucking little, sheikdoms and kingdoms, all of them shitholes take their orders from the British, because the British invented them. British decided, yes, you can, a couple of your tribe put together, yes, you can have a country. You also can have a country. There are 2,000 tribes there. In reality, that could have been 2,000 countries. But the British, decided who goes with whom and what they accept and what they don't. Just the British. So, Uncle Sam, George Washington and the founding fathers, I love you, man, Uncle Sam, but George Washington and the founding fathers never wanted to go on a hunt with the British. They hunted the British. They didn't want to go on a hunt with the British. They hunted British to kick them out during the Revolutionary War, but they didn't want to go hunting with the British, because they saw the British treat themselves much better than they treat other people, as a rule. When it gets really bad that you treat yourself so much better than other people, you treat yourself so much better than you treat other people. Riding around, the whole idea of the British liking the fact that their queen rides around in a golden carriage with, military, so everybody stands still and, salute and, This is something important happening here. She's walking. This whole idea, this theater, I can call this whole crown business in the British. I can consider this whole crown business as a theater. It's a theater meant to attract tourists. It's a theater meant to project power. It's a theater meant to create stability from within. It's a theater to collect everyone under the same tent. This whole monarchy business is a theater. The whole monarchy has become theater. It's been a while that the real monarchies of Europe have become theater, and slowly theaters go out of business. But the British have got this. This is what the British upper class wants. They want to continue with this theater because it gives them certain rights that it doesn't give other people. It gives them the right to control a big army. This theater of we are great and powerful, and we are united under one flag, and this whole theater that the British put on with their monarchy, it's just it's a show. At the heart of it, it says we are better than everybody else. You see how we treat our queen? That woman could be any British woman, old woman. Her mother could be any British old mother. Her son could be any British. Doesn't matter. It's the whole idea of, oh, you see, British have a queen. Oh, this is very important. She's a very important person. Oh, if she calls you sir, then that's it. You made it. You see, by making their queen sound very important, the British are making themselves sound very important. And this part of it, also Donald Trump had it right. It's sort of like, fuck you and your disputes with Russia. Another reason Uncle Sam, can't get along with Russia is because whether communist or not, Russia has always been on the opposite side of the British. Because Russia is the main inland power, along with Germany. Actually, French are the British colony in the mainland. If you can consider British having a colony in the mainland, that would be the French. And you never know with the French. They're always on they're inland, but they're always on the British side. Anyway, the point is this. I'm sorry, I lost the train of my thought. So, Uncle Sam, your managers are taking you to, you're getting in bed with the British. British don't make a good bed, Uncle Sam. Their idea is we are the top of the food chain and the rest of you motherfuckers are below us. And that's it. And they show it. And it doesn't really matter who is the queen or who is the king. The whole idea of, having something like that and treating one of their own so, high and mighty, what does that mean? That means this is one of us that is so high and mighty, and because he's so high and mighty, that makes us high and mighty, at least in comparison to you cocksuckers who don't live in this island. This is their idea. Uncle Sam, their ideas are always bad. Their ideas are colonialist ideas. The idea that we know best. Colonialist idea, Uncle Sam, is at its heart, is the idea of we know best. That's the colonialist idea. That's the whole idea of let's go remove Saddam because we know better. 20 years later, couple of million people, casualty, collateral damage, at least $500,000-600,000 direct collateral damage of all the infighting and outfighting and infighting. And why? The guy had control. All you had to do is agree on how much would be his cut from the McDonald's stands, or how much his cut would be. And he was a socialist at heart too. Again, I have a feeling, Uncle Sam, your managers have been fighting all these devils, but they're fighting these devils who happen to be socialists. They're dictators if they're socialists, but then, the Saudi Arabs are not dictators. Those little sheikdoms that the British had created out of thin air, those little sheikdoms, they were created by the British. The whole idea of British, following the British and the British way of thought that we know best, and we're going to go in and we're going to show the locals how it's done. But then while we're doing it, we are the boss and we're going to treat the locals like shit. This idea still is going on. Iraq. The idea was, in our view, it's a bad guy. The only problem was he was asking too much for his participation in get-togethers. Apparently he had to throw the party, and he had to bring food, and he had to, do this, and he had to do that for, and he had to, invest in NASDAQ, and apparently he didn't want to do that. He wanted to first, feed his own people and clothe his own people. He was a socialist. Yeah, he was crazy. Yes, he was crazy, but, Kuwait was a piece of, it just was created by the British. When you look at the map and you see where Kuwait has been created by the British, that means the population of Iraq, that much country with 30 million people, 25 million people, they didn't have access to warm waters. They were left with, very small, because right at their access to the warm water was created Kuwait. It just doesn't make sense that in the area, because landlocked countries, or countries which have very limited access to warm waters, always lag behind countries that have access to warm waters. So the British allowing such country to be created, they did create it themselves. Such country as Kuwait basically is cutting off the access of 30 million people of Iraq to the warm waters. Now they can only have access to this warm water through a canal, a river, and marshland. It is a very, tricky access to have if Kuwait was part of Iraq, which makes sense, at least make it like that, so he would, 30 million people would have access to warm waters. But no, the British, because the British, they sit and do these calculations as to what benefits the British. And now, Uncle Sam, my dear Uncle Sam, your managers have got you in this game of what is in our interest too. Our interest and the British interest, we're cousins, we love each other. And you keep going on, adventures. The British are, the British have a say in Hong Kong? Fuck you. Why? Because you colonized Hong Kong, now you have a say in it? Your island is on the other side of the planet. Malvinas? Dude, your island is on the other side of the planet. Wherever you go, you eliminated the locals, you took over the land, and now it's yours? Forever. Forever and ever. India needs to return. For the British to have such audacity to continuously, decade after decade, century after century, pretend that they are above everybody else, and everybody else goes along with it apparently. And the problem is if you agree that the British are special, the British want to milk you. If you don't agree that the British are special, then the Europeans are special, the pink skins are special, then you're a terrorist. You see what I'm saying? You either agree with the pink skin and you're special and they milk you like they're doing Arabian Peninsula. If you agree with the pink skin, they milk you like the Arabian Peninsula has been milked for the past 100 years, as the Indians were milked for 100 years before that, before the Arabs were milked by the British. Just having the banking, doing the banking of the Arabs, the British have been the banks of Arabs from the beginning. The Arabs decided that this is the heart, this is the empire, and this is the motherland of the empire. Then it's a safe place to put my money. So Arabs fucked each other and put the profits in the British banks. Arabs kept fucking each other and then in that peninsula, and then stealing from each other, but putting the money in the British banks. That has been the case for the past 100 years. And East Indian Company for 100 years before that, the British with the East Indian Companies have been, milking 300 million Indians. If you agree with the British, you get milked, and you have extreme poverty like they have in Saudi Arabia. 40% of the population is below, the line of poverty. It's just news doesn't come out because, they have permission to do whatever they like because they're friends. They're employees. Folks, this whole I'm trying to say, Uncle Sam, is that getting in the boat with the British, it's a bad idea. British are never on the good side. British are the aggressive. Baba, look at it this way: half the pirates in the Caribbean were retired British naval officers. Half the pirates of the Caribbean were retired British naval officers, retired or, forceful retirement or voluntary retirement. They just decided to go into business for themselves. They found a boat and they decided to, go into business for themselves instead of staying in a business with Queen. This is the British. This is the British. They're aggressive. Very aggressive. Very paranoid. And aggressive. Getting into these people's boat, Uncle Sam, is very bad. Because, these are the guys who went on the other side of the planet and fought the Chinese on their own land. You gotta be aggressive to go on the other side of the planet and claim land. On the other side of the fucking planet. You gotta be aggressive, very aggressive, extremely aggressive. And this is the British. A colony is a forceful takeover of land. And if your color doesn't match the color of the locals, then that's a really bad colony. And the British have been, won the trophy in colony making and colony keeping and royalty receiving. Oh, they have a bad boat, Uncle Sam. They have a bad boat, and it's not a good idea to get in the boat in a boat that the British are present. It's not a good idea. Love you, Uncle Sam.